Welcome to Worthy Ones, the video series where I take all the newest issue 1s, sometimes issue 2s, or other highly anticipated comic books, and I deem them worthy or not worthy. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content, if you love me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, you guys came to the right place. Before we get started, guys, I want to talk about a new Kickstarter that is coming soon, and this is called The Scourge of the Skull Digger Issue 1. So let's check out the trailer right now.
My orders from Ivan the Dominator, descendant and heir of Ivan the Terrible. He could rule it all with an iron fist, having me, the Skull Digger, as his general. I understand. I will be ready. Ivan has given me great power to recruit and lead his army. But it is not the power I need. I have other plans for the fallen. They serve me now as tribute, for I serve another, one who holds the very key to my existence. And flesh is the only tribute for flesh, for Lord Cadvius, and for my Lord's witch mother, Chalice. But even tribute is not enough to please a god forever.
So if you want to get notified when this Kickstarter launches, just go ahead and hit that button. There's also a link in my description box below. Again, Scourge of the Skull Digger Issue 1. So with that being said, guys, let's get started with this week's episode of Worthy Ones. Union Jack the Ripper Blood Hunt. This is issue 1. 36 pages for the price of $5. This book is written by Kevin Scott and the art is done by Kev Walker. The artwork is pretty good in this book. There's a lot of gore. It's very dark. And that's what I liked about this book. I had a really just a fun time looking at it and seeing what everyone did to these different types of vampires, especially this 2-page spread, and that was the highlight for me on this story. When it came to Union Jack, I don't have any attachment to the character whatsoever. I just thought it could be a different type of book, and it kind of was because I'm not familiar with the character, but at the same time, it was more like a survival horror type of book. It was like almost like a video game in very many ways, and this is one of those books where you can't take seriously, you just have fun reading it. And that was that. I mean, these guys basically are trying to avoid the vampires. Union Jack comes across a fellow, I guess, person that he works with that has turned into a vampire, and he's trying to protect him by the name of Bulldog. But there wasn't anything here where I was like, oh man, this is the best book I've ever seen. I gotta pick up issue 2. So for me, this book is not worthy. Listen, there's a lot of Blood Hunt tie-in books, and there's just a lot of books that I read in general. And so for the $5 that this book spent, even though it was okay, it just wasn't like a must-read second issue for me. There's a lot of other stuff out there. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just going to give this one a C. I thought it was good. It was okay, but it wasn't anything that, again, really excites you to get the next issue. Unless you might be a Union Jack fan. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Blood Hunt, issue 2, 28 pages for the price of $5. This book is written by Jed McKay and the art is done by Pepe Larez, which, when it comes to Blood Hunt and its artwork, it's absolutely phenomenal. At first I thought this was Blade, but this is T'Challa. This is Black Panther in the comic. It looks awesome. I love all the action and the fighting scenes and the way the characters look. And the one thing that this book really has going for it is the action. And if you like a summer action type of style of like popcorn flick, like type of movie, this is your book. Okay. And I had a tough time grading this book compared to the last one, and I'll explain why. So in this last issue, we got introduced to the world and this whole sun being blocked out, and we got introduced to the main characters, and a lot happened in that first issue, right? And we got to see our Avengers get their asses handed to them in that last issue too. Well, in this issue, the fight just basically continues, and we wind up getting to see what's left over from the Avengers here kind of take their asses to this blood coffin characters. Like, we see Bloodstorm, who winds up getting his ass taken out. We wind up seeing this barbed wire guy who gets his ass taken care of. And it was like they took on these guys very easily after being defeated like 2 seconds ago, right? And this particular issue, I felt, didn't really progress the story all that much. It just came to a quick resolve for the Avengers to defeat these guys. And I was like, that just seemed kind of quick for me. Like, it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, the whole world is ending. We don't know what to do against these guys. And then the next thing, it's like, we're going to fight these guys and we kick their ass, right? And then you wind up getting to see the other side of things, where we wind up getting to see Hunter's Moon, Tigra, and Miles Morales come to Doctor Strange to help find a cure. And, they're talking with Doctor Strange, who's in his astral form, and all those different things. And if you want to understand that, read that tie-in. And then all of a sudden, Miles Morales is a vampire. And you don't see anything that causes him to become a vampire. So you're kind of surprised, but not in the surprise where it's like, man, that's freaking badass. So even though that looks great, you're like, well, when did that actually happen? When did I see that, right? I don't know, man. I'm really struggling about this book. It's worthy, don't get me wrong. So it's worthy right there, but I was debating and thinking about this literally all yesterday and last night. Is it a C+? Is it a B-? And I remember I gave last time the regular edition a B-. And I think I'm going to give this one a C+, because I felt it was shorter and it didn't accomplish all that much. It's just more fighting, and that's kind of like what Jed MacKay did in the beginning of the run of his Avengers, right? And so there just wasn't a lot added to the story. I really want to hear you guys' thoughts on Blood Hunt issue 2. Blood Hunt Red Band Edition issue 2. This is a 40-page comic for the price of, yes, $6. And it's poly-bagged, so this is the explicit content where we have added bloodied features to it, of course written by Jed MacKay and Pepe Larraz. Before we get into the differences of this comic, the one thing that I didn't say when I was talking about the regular edition, if you feel like this event feels short of the storytelling, or you feel like it needs to be a more in-depth story, I said it last time, I feel like you're going to get those much in-depth stories in Jed MacKay's books that he writes. So Doctor Strange, Avengers, and also Moon Knight. So I think you should read those books, and then you'll get a much more expansive story. And it feels like the Blood Hunt event itself is very much a action-driven event, okay? So I'm just letting you know that. Now, let's talk about the differences between the Red Band and the normal. If I had my pick, I would probably just go with the Red Band edition, because it does give you a little bit more story, not too much. And of course, you want to see the few added gory details to this comic book. So here is one page right here. So this is the normal edition, where we get to see a kid and two kids and the mom, and they're being looked over by the vampires here. Well, in that same page on the Red Band edition, here you get to see the vampires, see them from a distance, but here they're just like eating people, right? This bottom scene is the same between the two. Then the next thing you wind up seeing in the book is when you see like Miles Morales and Tigra and everybody else going to Doctor Strange's place, and they visit Doctor Strange, and you wind up seeing in the normal version, Doctor Strange looks like this. And in the red band edition, he's kind of just flipped upside down, but then you see his intestines. So there's a difference right there. Nothing that really adds to the story, but does, add a little bit more gore to it. Then you wind up seeing our Avengers take on this blood coffin gang, right? And there's this one page where Captain Marvel takes it to the character here by the name of, let me see if I can find his name again. I always forget who it is. This guy right here, the dude that looks like a statue, right? And so she knocks him out and he looks like this. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like that adds a nice little story thread that's not in the regular edition. And he says a key line. He goes, he says, Miss Marvel says, or Captain Marvel says, tell me how this happened. Tell me what happened to Blade. And he's like, Blade the Master, he has become what he was always meant to be, a vessel. The vessel for our dreams of the unending night. Look upon the face of the future of your species, Captain Marvel. And that's not in the book at all. And I thought that was a cool little page in there. But besides those two things, that was, I think, the real difference here. Even the final page this time around with Miles Morales becoming a vampire, those were exactly the same. So if I missed anything, just point it out. It's kind of like an Easter egg hunt. It's fun. This book is worthy. I feel like obviously you pay for what you can afford. So if you can't afford the extra dollar, you get the normal. But if you're not, you're not queasy to more, I guess, bloodier comic books and you want the full effect of this story, go out and buy this one. I'm going to give this one a B just because it has those added little story threads to it. And of course, it's a little gorier. White Boat, issue 1. This book is 48 pages for the price of $9, published by Distillery. This is written by Scott Snyder. Francisco Van Canvilla is the one that does the artwork in this book. And this book can be creepy at times. This is a horror book. And it's like in 3 different chapters. And it starts off a little sad. It's a little happy in the middle, and at the end, it just gets very strange. Now, the reason why I picked up this book, and I said this in my comic book haul, is 1, I am a fan of Scott Snyder, but 2, I have this love for watching the show Below Deck, and I watch it with my wife, and I have watched like 10 straight seasons of it right now. And I am a huge fan of just watching all the trash that goes on with the crew, the people that enter the boats or the yachts, right? And doing these charters. It's just a lot of fun. And in this comic book, it dives into that world even more. It gives you the description of like what a white boat is and what's considered a mega yacht, a super yacht, and all those different things, right? And so I found myself intrigued into the yachting world even more after reading this. So what this book is about is that it's about this guy, this kid, who had a twin brother who wound up dying in a freak accident, and they were on a boat, right? And it was very sad. Now, the main character's name in this book is actually called Lee, and in Below Deck, the captain's name is Lee as well. And I was like, man, I wonder if some of this is inspired by Below Deck. If I had to talk to Scott Snyder, I would be like, hey, did you get a little bit of this idea from Below Deck, right? But we get to learn about the main character as he got older, what he's doing for his living. He wound up getting recruited to do this article piece on this white boat. And when he goes onto this boat for the first time, and it's supposedly the biggest, the most prestigious boat there is, and when he starts investigating and goes below deck, there is some weird crap that's happening, dude. Like, weird stuff. And then all of a sudden, he winds up magically going onto this island where it might be his brother or it might not be. Very interesting comic book. I thought this book was worthy in every stretch of the imagination because my head was scratching. I'm sitting there going, what is it with this freaking yacht? Where does this thing come from? How long has it been around? Like, so good, dude. I really love this book, and this was an A+. Now, when it comes to Scott Snyder, we know that his world building at times can be dense, so you got to be ready to read this book. It is quite hefty, 48 pages with a lot of narration. So maybe read this book when this is your only book to read for a couple of hours or so. But I loved it, and hopefully you will too. Spider-Gwen, the Ghost Spider. This is issue 1, legacy numbering 61, 40 pages, $5. Written by Stephanie Phillips, and the art here is done by Federica Manson. The art for me in this book is very like hit or miss. I feel like when it comes to the human characters, when they're not like wearing costumes, I feel like their facial expressions are a little weird at times. But then when Spider-Gwen enters the scene and she has her mask and costume, I thought it looked really good, and the action poses were like over exaggerated, and I like that as well. But like certain characters just were weird again, especially like regular human faces. And Kraven the Hunter makes his way into this comic, and he just looked too nice. Too friendly, too soft-faced. And that's what I didn't like about it. But Spider-Gwen looked okay, right? Okay, so let's talk about this comic book. Is it me, or did you feel lost in this book? Now, if you read Smash, you kind of have an idea of what's going on, I guess. But they don't fill new readers in on what's happening at all. And maybe it's supposed to be this mystery on why she's come to this earth and why she stayed here. Okay, so she's working with the TVA, with OB, to come and stay at this earth, but she can't be Spider-Gwen. She can't use the costume, even though she does in the first like 2 pages of the book, because if she does, then I guess her family is at risk. Why? We don't know. It's never explained. It's just danced upon, right? So there's some reason why she's on Earth, and if she exposes herself, again, her family's at risk. And my question is why is everyone so surprised to see her? It's not like she's never been on this Earth before. She's hung out with all these other characters before, all the other spider characters. And she doesn't follow the rules. As soon as she sees danger, she starts helping people, and then she becomes at risk. There's actually a scene right from the Spider-Man 2 movie where she stops like a bus from hitting another bus or another vehicle. And then all of a sudden Kraven the Hunter shows up, and then it's just like this weird battle, and she gets thrown in the ocean, and then someone picks her up. Which I think it's the dude from the TVA. I don't know what to think about this comic. I'm going to give it an issue 2. So I'll call it worthy for now. But as a grade, I'm going to give it a C. I don't think it was very new reader friendly. And if you've never read Spider-Gwen stuff in the past, you're going to be like, well, they didn't explain anything, right? I just found it very, very weird and very odd. It's not a bad book. And maybe you need more time to see develop, and that's why I'm going to buy issue 2. But yeah, it's a C for me. That's it, man. It was just average. I wasn't blown away. I like Stephanie Phillips as a writer. I think she's written some great stuff, but I was expecting something different from this. Rook Exodus. This is issue 2. Written by Jeff Johns. The art is done by Jason Fabik. This is a 32-page comic for the price of $4. When you have artwork as great as this comic book, man, oh man, this just takes you into the story, and you just like get lost in it. I love the way Rook looks. I love the way Direwolf looks. I love the way this world looks. You get to see Rook try to find a final piece to get to, to build his rocket to leave this planet, maybe possibly go to Earth, right? And just everything goes south in this comic. And I love seeing this possible relationship that these two had, right? and it's Rook, and her name is Donica, and obviously Rook is waiting for Swine, who was actually, you know, I guess, without spoiling it, coming into a confrontation with the Bear Warden, which is named Ursa, okay? And once he heard from Swine, they were going to take off in this spaceship together and leave. Well, there's this whole battle that happens in the comic, and just things go horribly wrong for Rook in here. This book is absolutely worthy. This is a book that you guys should pick up. For me, when it comes to the Ghost Machine titles, this is the best book out there. I love the characters. They're so interesting. I love seeing how their helmets work to control all these different, you know, animals, and how this world has gone wrong. And there's a reason why they should stay on this planet. We don't quite know what it is yet, because they have to survive against this Ursa bear-like character to begin with. And that's kind of the cliffhanger here. A fantastic book. This is an A+. Please do yourself a favor, guys. Check out this book from Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok. You won't be disappointed. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 50. I had to cover this book. I just had to, especially for the people that did drop this book. Now, this book is legacy numbering 944. It's an 80-page comic for the high price of $10. Now, this book is not going to get a perfect grade because, to begin with, of the high price. I feel like you need to have a full story, and it needs to be the 80 pages, right, to charge that $10. I feel like when you add a bunch of backups, you're inflating the page count for stories that people may not want to read, okay? Now, I will give you a little tip here. Make sure you read the last couple pages, because it's an epilogue to the main story. So if you're not into backup stories and you say, oh, here I am at the backup stories, and you close it, just read the last couple pages, because there is a continuation of the story. Now, this book is this book is written by Zeb Wells, and the art here is done by Ed McGuinness. And let me tell you, it was a smart thing to have Ed McGuinness on this book, because if it was John Romita Jr., there's no way they could have pulled this off, and to charge $10 for that artwork would have been just a crime, okay? But the artwork looks fantastic in this book. When it comes to Spidey, he looks great. Norman looks great. And this is basically a story with the return of the Green Goblin in here. It's not a spoiler. We know he comes back. And the way he comes back, the way it's presented to you as the reader, I thought it was excellent. Look at the way he looks here. I thought that was a lot of fun. And you're just like, man, it's been a long freaking time since we've seen the Green Goblin. And the action, the 2-page spreads, everything that's going on in this comic is really phenomenal. I loved it. The colors are bright and vibrant, and it was a really good concept for the story, because it's basically a story where who outsmarts the next. And the cool thing about this book is a lot of people complain that Peter would never work for Norman Osborn for what he did with Gwen Stacy and their history. Well, it is revealed in this comic book that Peter never trusted Norman from the beginning, and it's kind of like the keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer type of deal, and that's what he's been doing all along. So you get to see this fight happen. You get to see this situation happen with the living brain as it becomes a robot in itself, which is kind of weird, right? But nevertheless, the main story was actually a lot of fun, and this main story makes the book worthy. It's not a 28-page main story. It's more like, I don't know, 40 pages or something like that. And then you get the backup stories. You get the one story with written by Marv Wolfman, and the art is done by Terry Dotson, which was a fun little story. You get another backup story in here with a donut shop. Like, who cares about that? No one cares about that. Then you get this other story where it's just like some weird, like, I don't know, it almost looks like a little kid drew the story. And then you get, it's just, there's filled with just too many backups. But then, like I said, there's the epilogue that continues here, right? So at the end of the day, I'm going to give this one a solid B. Main story, great. Can deal without all the little stories at the end. You could make it more affordable for people to read without adding those stories in there. And you would have had probably an A comic, in my opinion. So I'm curious to see where this goes. And also in this comic, you get to see kind of the beginnings of Peter Parker turning into a version of a Green Goblin. And that's kind of weird too. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But it was better. It was much better than what it's been. So there you guys have it. There are this week's new number ones, some number twos, and a highly anticipated number 50. I want to know all your comments below, what you thought of these comics, if you read them yet. And of course, guys, I'll leave you more content right here. In fact, this is my latest comic book haul, where I show you everything that I picked up for the current comic book week. And as always, guys, support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but more importantly, read your comics so we can always have that great comic conversation. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye.